presentation, and please let me know if you can see the presentation.
Yes, we can.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Klaudia Peszat. I've been working at Statistics Poland. I am also the member of the Web Intelligence Network project. And today with my colleague Dominik Dąbrowski, we would like to present our experiences related to the acquisition of web data and their processing from online real estate platforms. So the presentation will be focused mainly on online real estate market. However, we will also tell a few words about web scraping as such, and also some challenges related to web data that can be more generic, and we hope that the webinar will be useful. Okay, so I'll start with the plan of our presentation. At the beginning, I'd like to tell a bit more about the Web Intelligence Network project and how our research is located within the project as such, and also how it is connected with the Web Intelligence Hub. Then we will take a step back because we would like to have a very short introduction to web scraping, just to be sure that everybody is on the same page, that everybody know what the web scraping is. So Dominik will go briefly through web scraping methods and elaborate a bit more about this method as such, but then it will be the main part of the presentation. He will focus on collection of web data and our experiences in that field. So he will elaborate more about our use case and gathering data via web scraping from real estate online platforms. The next step in that process is data processing, and in that part we would like to focus mainly on quality of the data, because as we probably all knew that collection, editing and preparing data sets is the main part of statisticians and data scientists job. So this is the most important part, and it is the most time-consuming as well part. So here we concentrate on the quality of data, and we tell about challenges that we encountered, and some issues and problems that we should still deal with it. The next two process steps is data analysis and data disseminations. So we dropped them from our presentations as our research is still under development, and we are after collection of web data and processing the data and assessing its quality. So the next steps will be presented hopefully in the next coming months. However, as I mentioned, collection and processing of the data, it's more time consuming, and this is a very important part of each research. So this is these two steps which we would like to focus today at our today's presentation. So let's start from the background and how it all started. So as we probably all know, we have in Europe the concept of trusted smart statistics, and Eurostat settled the concept of hubs dedicated for different data sources. So under development are different data hubs, and one of them is Web Intelligence Hub, which Sarah already mentioned. But there are also a few more hubs dedicated to, for example, sensors or mobile network operators data, and probably there will be also another ones related to other types of data sources. Today, we will focus on the Web Intelligence Hub, which, as Sarah mentioned, is under development, and Eurostat is responsible for development of that hub. However, it is conducted with a close cooperation with experts from national statistical organizations, and they are working within the Web Intelligence Network. Within our Web Intelligence Network project, we have several use cases. Two of them are, let's say, pretty mature. So this one is online job advertisements and online-based enterprise characteristics. And so far, the Web Intelligence Hub is more oriented to develop online job advertisements and online-based enterprise characteristics, and to implement and integrate these two use cases into production of official statistics. But we are developing and exploring also data within 6 new use cases. Sarah already mentioned them, so this is just to put it once again, and that you can see that there are plenty of applications and of web data, and there are a few domains that we are exploring in our project. Today, we would like to focus on the real estate market. And this is the project which is conducted by 6 partners from 6 organizations. This is Finland, France, Germany, Poland, and Bulgaria. From Germany, we have 2 regional statistical offices. This is Berlin-Brandenburg and Statistics Hesse. As we have one general goal of our project, and it is collect data about real estate market from the internet. The methods how we can collect the data can be different. So some partners decided to scraping data from the internet. Some of them have signed contract with data providers, and on the regular basis have collected data from data owners. As we have one goal, there are of course different applications, because specific purposes of our organizations can be different. So here I've got the slide which present different kind of applications of web data in real estate statistics. However, some partners focus more, for example, on new indicators. Some of them, for example, on the prices indices. Some of them try to explore other areas. We know that web data have a very huge potential to provide more timely statistics in a more granular way. So this is the issue, and this is actually the reason why all of us have considered web data from real estate platforms as a source that it should be further explored. We also try to look for preparing some statistics some flash estimates, and monitor trends and market shifts, because such data can provide data in a more timely manner, and also we can prepare on that basis some information about, for example, market shifts. However, apart from the very structured or semi-structured information from real estate platforms, like, for example, prices, location, surface, and so on, there are also plenty of information in the plain text, in the description of offers, which can be used to prepare and to calculate new indicators. So, for example, Statistics Poland decided to look at the descriptions and also try to extract some information about facilities, about security equipment and surroundings of apartments to produce or try to produce new indicators. And some of partners, of course, focus on produce statistics on prices, and this is also great value of such data source to prepare or to give an input to hedonic models of prices. Now I'd like to elaborate more of our approach as Statistics Poland, because there is a slight it is a difference when it comes to the sources which are available at Statistics Poland now. So first of all, when we compared within the project the reference sources for sale or rental market, it turned out that in Poland we actually don't have a relevant reference source for rental market. Some countries have, for example, administrative data sources. In our country, we don't have a very good data source for that part of the market, which is increasing when it comes to the value and the number of offers, so it should be monitored. That's why we are looking for new data sources, and it was obvious that we can try to explore web data from real estate portals, and that's why we decided within that project to try to collect that data and explore them more and assess its quality. However, we didn't stick to rental market. We also collect data from sale market to have the possibility to compare that data with the survey and administrative data which are available at Statistics Poland, and just to explore the potential of web data and if it's possible somehow, and in that some time to prepare experimental statistics and maybe in the end some official statistics, or even augment existing statistics, especially in that part of market which is not covered yet. So this is just a bit of background information about our approach and how we are located within the project. And as I mentioned, now we will go to the first process step, which is web scraping, and I will give the floor to Dominic.
Okay, thank you, Claudia, for this introduction. Now I would like to tell you something about web scraping, make a little introduction to this topic. Then we will go through the different steps of collecting data using web scraping techniques. And Sarah, I would like you to start the first slide of question now, because I would like to start with a question to the audience. So if you could all go to the Slido page and answer the question, have you ever heard about web scraping? This will be helpful for me to get to know the level of your knowledge here. If there will be a need to show something more or not. Okay, so I see that web scraping is, I suppose, very popular. Okay, so now I see that 90% of you that voted heard about web scraping. So now, Sarah, please turn on the second question. We'll see how many of you have ever tried to scrape some website by yourself? We'll see if the results will be a little bit different than for the first question. Okay, I see the results on Slido. It's like a bit 50-50, but I see that we cannot see it on the presentation now. Oh, okay, yeah. So majority of us know what web scraping is, and 50-50 is the one that have ever tried it. So it's good to hear that we've got a community that is using web scraping or ever tried to extract data from the internet. It's not hard. Everything is all the problems are around of the processes. Okay, thank you, Sarah, for the Slidos. I will now go to the presentation, and I think that for next hour I will try to share with you some of our experiences. Okay, I think that you see my first screen. Sorry. Okay, so now you should see the presentation. Please just let me know if it's okay now.
Yep, we can see it.
Yep, it's fine.
Okay, thank you. All right, so as I said, I'd like to go through a short introduction to the basic knowledge on web scraping. I'm happy that many of you know something about web scraping. So I will just quickly sum up that web scraping is an automated process of extracting data from websites. We can do it using different software tools. We can also use it. We can also use some extensions that are in browsers like Firefox, or some extensions that we can find in Chrome. We use web scraping for extracting information such as text, images, links, and web scraping is being used for many years. It became more popular in last couple of years. Probably the number of e-commerce company had a big impact on this, because as I know, the number of e-commerce companies, so the value of the e-commerce market in Poland, it's estimated that it had increased by 500% since 2014. So there is more and more sources, more and more data that we can look for and try to grab. Web scraping is used often by businesses and by some organizations to simply gather information on their competitors, to follow the market trends, to follow the customer behaviors. Also, web scraping is used by universities, by academics to collect data for studies, for analysis. And well, it's obviously more effective than simple manual data collection from websites, especially when we want to gather big amounts of data. There are two main types of scraping, like the standard scraping when we know what we want to get from the website. We can find where exactly the information that we want to extract is positioned on the page. And the second type is web crawling, which refers to putting a software web crawler, a web robot that is going through the website, searching for some links, and then trying to extract information or some specific information, or like going for the bulk download and trying to get all data that it can find, and then we can process it and find some patterns and get the information from the website. So one is when we know exactly where is the place that the data is positioned. The second one when we exactly do not know it, and we need the crawler to go and just look through the website. Well, so web scraping may seem easy regarding the level of knowledge that you need to have to program or to write a script, web scraping script for one of the websites, but everything is in the details. And one thing that is crucial, and still it is under discussion, that web scraping can be controversial, and some website owners see web scraping as a violation of their terms of use or their intellectual property rights. Therefore, it is important to understand the legal and ethical considerations of web scraping before embarking a project. So when we want to start a project that is built on web scraped data, we need to check what is the legislation in our country. There is also a discussion that's going on. What should we do in the case when the servers, so the data, are positioned in other country? So should we refer to some law of different countries than ours or not? From my point of view, there is still a need to prepare some high-level act, and I know that there is an advanced work on Data Act in Europe, so probably there will be much easier to decide if web scraping is really legal or not. As for now, we can only refer to some ethical aspects of it. And in some countries, like for example in France, I know that I suppose from 2020, they created an official guideline government guideline for extracting data, extracting information from the websites, and they, by this guideline, they disallowed to extract information like telephone numbers, personal information like names of people. So this is something that they introduced for their country, and well, this is like every country has its own ideas how to come up with it. So like I mentioned, there is a need to have like a high-level act of legislation that can tidy up all those problems that are coming with scraping and its legality. There, I know that probably this presentation will be shared with you. So here are some links to two cases, LinkedIn versus HiQ company and Facebook versus Power Ventures, where you can find information how those two companies were trying to stop web scrapers extracting data from their pages. So I recommend to look into it and to read how web scraping may end. And regarding the ethical aspects, it is said that we should follow the information that are provided by the administrators of the websites written in the robots.txt files. The robots.txt files are the text files that are under the main root of the website. So like here, I have an example of robots.txt file of Amazon.com. I will try to show it to you. I hope that you can see my browser now, and you can see the robots.txt file. Here in this example, Amazon started this file with information for user agent type. So for all user agents, so everyone that is trying to automatically scrape the website, they disallow to go into this these levels of website, and there are some things that are allowed. Of course, this is something that we should obey if we want to be ethically okay with the website, with the website owner. And well, if we try to not to obey those rules, well, nothing will happen. It's just up to us. It's good to check if the area of the website that we would like to go into is allowed in the robots.txt file. And here at the bottom of the Amazon.com robots.txt, we can see that they disallow every location of the page for the ETAO spider. So maybe they had some problems with this spider, so they do not want it to go into Amazon.com website. Of course, if the ETAO spider will obey those rules. Another example, oh, sorry, I was using the, okay, so another example is eBay.com, where the robots.txt file has a different structure. It starts with a begin file between inside hashes, and it ends also with the information end file. So when we would like to read this file automatically, we will know that it for sure read the whole file, because we will be able to script the program in that way that he will get to the end file line. Of course, in this robots.txt, we may also find some links to sitemaps, which may be very helpful when you are trying to scrape anything. And also here are some more examples of different robots that this file refers to. So we got some ads about Google robot, Twitter bot. So these are the places that Twitter bot is not allowed to go into the eBay.com site. All right, and let's move forward. So let's get to the data collection stage. And to start with the data collection process, I would like to share with you, for example, let's get back to the Amazon website. On every website in our browser, we have the possibility to inspect the page and to see the HTML structure. So simply, it's when we go into some category, we can see the list of items that is presented on the Amazon. And if I click on some element, right click on it and make an inspection, I can see the HTML. So this is the markup language that we can use to extract the information from the website. And HTML is very well structured. It has its divisions, headers, and so on. So different tags that we can refer to when we will get this information in response. So the basic process of scraping is just getting this response. So getting this view of the HTML file onto our programming software. And here is the window that is showing us. Let's refresh the page. How many different elements are being downloaded, so being sent back to the browser in response of our request for seeing the page. So we can see that many different elements are downloaded, many different elements with, while there, some of them may be connected with the databases with information that is present on the page. So sometimes it's well, it's recommended to see what exactly is being sent in response from the server. We can also see if there are some response status different than 200. So the status with number 2 at the first position, there are those positive status responses. Number 3 are the ones that tells us that here was some redirection, and probably this information came from other source or redirected us to some other information from other servers. All right. I'm back at the presentation and the slides. To choose the best source in our case, in our real estate offers web scraping process, we had to work together with different organizations. Like Claudia and Sarah mentioned, we are working in the Web Intelligence Network. So we started the project of Real Estate Offers web scraping with building some criterias, some list of criterias that could help us assess if this page is more accessible, if it's easier to get the data, to extract the data from it. So as we decided to set this like a set of criteria, set of rules, it helps us to eventually choose appropriate sources and know that some of them are scored higher and some of them are scored lower, and the criteria that we used were very different. Some of them referred to, as I mentioned, the accessibility. So these were the ones that were telling us if the website is using some blocking techniques to prevent web scraping. Then there were some criteria that helped us to assess if the data quality on the website is high enough. And some of the criteria we were able to assess before writing the scripts. Some of them, there was a need when we had to prepare basic scrapers to get some part of the data and then assess it. So not every aspect of this assessment could be done before the process of writing the scripts. So finally, we created a list of 30 different criteria that we could choose from. And as a country, as Poland, we decided to, in the end, work with 4 websites that had the highest rank in this scoring sheet. And not only it was to the accessibility, data quality, data structure, but also to legal and ethical considerations. So as I mentioned at the beginning, there was also a need to check what are the legal acts, the law on web scraping. In Poland, we got the case that we have Act on Statistics that lets us gather information from all publicly available sources. But there's a problem with it because we got some different regulations that refers, for example, to databases, and it tells that all databases are secure. They are owned by some companies, some private companies, and those databases are secured on the base of this regulation. So, like now, we have 2 regulations that one says that it's completely obvious that we should be able to acquire the data from the web, from the websites, and the second one tells us that it's not so clear because web scraping is just extracting from the website, but the information that is on the website comes from some databases that are on the servers in the internet, not in the internet, in the servers that are in the companies or in the clouds. Some of the criteria we used were easier to assess, and when we were assessing the structure of the HTMLs, there was a need, of course, to have the knowledge how to do it. So the whole process was a cooperation between IT experts, methodologists. So it never is a one-man job. When it comes to every project, there is a need to cooperate, and here also I suggest that always when you start some big data projects, using web scraping and so on, you need to have someone to create your IT environment to help you with methodology aspects, with the quality of the data, and help you with writing the scripts. Even if you will be able to do it all, there is no way that you can do it quickly and without any mistakes. So the cooperation is the key. Sometimes we found out that the websites that we were trying to extract the data from blocked the requests that we were sending. It didn't refer to especially to the project that we are doing in real estates, but the types of blocks that we can find are the CAPTCHA, so the systems or the tools to check if we are not a robot. So in this case, that we can see here, this is a very simple, basic scraper written in Python using only two libraries, Requests and Beautiful Soup. And when I was trying to get to the one of the Senegalese websites, I got the response, the HTML in response like that. As you can see, there is an information that I should enable JavaScript and cookies to continue. So like trying to scrape this website using this basic technique, like using Beautiful Soup and making just a simple request was impossible. And also trying to avoid it using some automatic website, like using the Selenium library that is part of that's possible to implement into Python. Also failed because we got an information that this page is secured by Cloudflare, which is a company that helps to avoid extracting information through the robots or avoid crawling through the page. And also this technique was impossible to implement on this particular website. So as I mentioned, there you may have basic knowledge on web scraping, but then when you stuck on some problems, there would be a need to either educate more, to find more better solutions, other solutions, or to have a specialized, well-prepared IT expert on web scraping. So it all refers to the time that we have for the project. If we have more time to go through those problems, we may try to search for some information in the internet or somewhere else. But if we want to get through it, get through those blockades quickly, it's better to have someone for helping. All right, so you have already seen that I built some scraper, like this basic one in Python. I use Python for programming just because it was recommended to me a few years ago. But of course, there are also some different programming languages that you can use, like Ruby or R, and they can be also used to web scrape data. So if you are able to process data in R, it's obviously that you should work on R with your scrapers. There's no need to learn any other language. And in Python, there are two most popular tools that we can use. So one of them is Beautiful Soup library that lets us change the HTML document into an understandable structure of tags that we can refer to, and we can easily extract the exact information that we wanted to get. As HTML is a document that is built on texts, so only if the information that we want to extract from the website is in the HTML tag presented as a text, we can do it, we can scrape it, we can extract it. If the information is presented in the form of a picture, it would be harder. We would need to use some techniques to try to read the information from the pictures and somehow process them into finally the versions that we want to achieve. So probably as texts or integers numbers. To prepare a dedicated scraper using Python or some other languages, we can use different environments, different IDEs. So for Python, I use PyCharm, Visual Studio Code, or you can use also Anaconda, which I personally do not use a lot. VS Code is the software that or a tool that I started using this year, and it works very well with GitHub solutions, and also it has many extensions that I see that may be helpful while doing some researches and some data processing. When we have the data inspected on the website, when we know exactly what we want to extract, then we need to have some environment where we would like to store those data. So right now, I would like to stop for a while, have a sip of water, and I would like Sarah to ask you to run the last Slido. We'll just have a 2 minutes break to get to know what programming languages and what software for data management, web scraping for data processing do you use. So let's have a little bit fun and share information on what do you use. As I mentioned, I work in Python. I use PyCharm and VS Code. I work in Microsoft SQL. So I use those Microsoft SQL servers also. So let's get to know what are your preferences. Oh, sorry. Sarah, can you share the
Is it not showing?
We've got it. Okay, I've got it. I can see that here we got mainly R, Python, and also SAS is times. Okay, this is interesting. This AI assistant. I know that this very popular tool, ChatGPT, also can prepare a programming script for us, like in Python, to build a scraper for some specific website. Yeah, so I see that mainly it's Python and R, and I suppose that it's because of their complexity. So it lets us not only acquire data, but process, create some visualizations. So this is also important to work in collaboration with people that are that have different knowledge of tools, because as I know that we can have a very good data manager, a data engineer, and I will say that he wouldn't be able to prepare very good visualizations, but there are people that are prepared to build the visualizations, to sell it better to the audience, to make it all more blinking. Okay, Sarah, could you go scroll down a little bit to the beginning of this of those responses, or scroll up? I don't know. Where are we? Okay, so we've got K9 here, but mostly I see Python, R, SAS, and this Codium. Yeah, so as we can see, we are mostly moving around some small set of tools, and I suggest assume that this is like the basic set of programs that we should know. It's good to know some different tools, but it's better to, of course, be professional in one of them. All right, I'll get back to my presentation. Thank you for this sharing this software tools. Okay. Okay, so I'm back at the presentation. And here you can see like a brief graph of how we prepared the environment, the IT infrastructure for our projects. And this environment is used for two different web scraping projects. One of is based on real estate data. The second one refers to data on medications and information extracted from drugstores. So as you can see, we've got an application server at the top, which has its own dedicated IP. So this is because we were afraid that if we would do something bad to the page and they would block us, we didn't want to use the same IP as the whole organization. So we have a dedicated IP on this server, and we've got 2 network area storages. One of them has 3 terabytes of data, and it's all connected to MS SQL database. This server is also used for some other purposes, but we plan to start finally using it when the data that we extracted will be ready to share with other statisticians within our organization. Because in Statistics Poland, we have lots of statisticians that have a knowledge of using SQL solutions. So we want to prepare the data to be stored in MS SQL databases for them to be able to use them in their own for their own reasons. All right. One more thing that I probably forgot to mention while assessing the page, inspecting the page with the HTML structure, it is also good to search there for some information regarding API access, because API access gives us a possibility to get to the same data that probably we would get through this classical standard web scraping, but API gives us a possibility to make it in more to get those data in more structured way, and maybe not to acquire this data in 5 hours, but in 1 hour time. So this was the thing that I recommend to always check for the APIs, and from our experience, it's also I hear it around different countries that I meet with other experts that are way before us, I could say, in web scraping, and they recommend also highly to try to get in touch with the owner of the data, because not everyone, probably no one wants to be scraped, because it's the problem for the servers. They are already being scraped by like the Google bots and some other different bots, some their competitors and so on. So there's no need to create another web scraper to extract the data. If you are a statistical organization, there may be a way to get in touch with them and try to make an agreement to acquire the data in more easier and probably more structured way. Well, we scrape the data for this real estate project since April 2022. And as for now, we haven't encountered any bigger problems. We haven't been blocked by the website owner. Well, we use those intervals between requests. So this is also the case that you need to check how many seconds between different requests you may have, and it wouldn't harm a lot server. Sometimes it's good to remember that when your scraper is very complex and it makes a lot of calculations between the requests, maybe within your scraper you are doing some processing, you are connecting with some other tables that you have. This script, these calculations also takes time, so there may be no need to make time stops between next requests because the script is executing so slow, making some calculations that it takes more than 1 second, and you don't need to add this additional time slip, because every second in web scraping, especially in web scraping, some pages that have big amount of offers, like in those real estates, when we have 100,000 offers that we want to scrape, every second per one offer, it's 100,000 seconds. So it's like, I know it could be even the whole day of executing the program. Here on this slide, you can see that there are some basic common problems that you may find using the web scraping techniques. Of course, the main problem in web scraping is when the page structure is changing. So we have found some pattern that we are using to extract the information from the HTML document, and then this pattern fails to work more, and it's the case, for example, of Booking.com website, which can slightly change its HTML structure each 3 months. So each season it makes a new layout, and the information that we're gathering from one of the tags may be now in some different tag. He was also mentioned the Cloudflare problem, and as I know, I never tried this yet, but when you can register in the Cloudflare database, and you can register your bot, your scraper there. Of course, there will be some rules that you need to follow, but there's a possibility to overcome the problem of Cloudflare. There's also a honeypot problem, and this is the link that you can later click and see how it works as in an example of some basic honeypot, and those honeypots refer to a situation when the administrator of the server or the creator of the website leaves some information on the website, on the HTML document, that is not visible for a human. So during the manual interaction with the website, you wouldn't see this. You can see it only through the HTML structure. So when the web crawler goes through the website and it clicks something or goes somewhere, the website, the server knows that this is a bot, and it should be rejected. Those requests from this bot should be rejected. And there are many ways how to avoid it. Of course, this is like the race between those that want to avoid the interaction of the bot with their websites and the data scientists that want to get the data. Our own experience referring to preparing an environment for web scraping is that when we created the IT structure, we didn't let the files to be modified by different users. So when some of our specialists worked on a dedicated scraper, then when he was absent, we weren't able to modify it when the structure of the page changed or something else happened. So this was our mistake, that it's obvious that we should do it, but we forgot about this. And these are the things that sometimes can be forgotten, those obvious ones. And the next interesting thing that we did monitored is that during the stage of acquiring the list of URLs that we would like to later get through and scrape through, during the process of acquiring this list, so going through paginations of the website of the authors, this list in the middle of the process is being modified. So at start, we think that we will acquire 100,000 links, and then we can see that finally we got less or more. So you need to always monitor how these websites behave in different times of the day or in different days, in different weeks. The problem that we still have is also some obvious thing, that sometimes we got server errors and our server just restarts, and this is the problem of our IT infrastructure, especially for this specific dedicated server. But during the scraping process, I think that it happened 3 times during the year. The scraper was stopped because the server restarted, and once it happened because of the updates that were made by our IT team on the server. So this was also the case that we had to talk with them to make the updates in some specific times that we are not running the scrapers. And so these were the main problems that that we found out during our project. Oh yes, and this is the view of the sitemap. So to lower the number of web scraped information, web scraped pages, web scraped authors, you may use the information that is stored on the sitemaps. So sometimes the sitemap is made in HTML, sometimes it's made in XML. Here I have short sample of how it looks in the XML. It's one of Polish pages with offers of real estates. And as you can see here, there are totally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different offers. And there are some dates of last modification. So it can give us an information if there is a need to once again go into this offer, extract the information, or we can just copy it from the last acquisition. So it can lower the number of requests that we are sending. So it's also the way to lower the times that we are trying to get the responses from the server. What lessons did we learn during the cooperation? And still we are learning, because we are in the process of creating the input to Web Intelligence Hub. So there is a need to, on the level of organization, to control the amount of different open source programs. So this is also why I wanted to get this information from you. So like, we know that most of you use Python and R, and there were some other softwares. In Statistics Poland, I have colleagues using for managing databases. They are using the MongoDB. Some of them using SQLite. So there are multiple solutions, and this is the problem for the organization to manage this number of different open source programs, because as the name says, they are open sourced. So when we let someone use Python and we let him import different libraries, it would be good to have some level of security on this. What is going on in these programs, in this software. So probably a solution would be to create some common environment with a set of different tools to use, and this solution could be the Web Intelligence Hub, so the Web Intelligence platform that is inside of it, to move the process of web scraping from our IT systems to make it more automated in the hub. So right now, the hub is working well. It's of course still in production, but I know that the scrapers that are created inside the hub are working. The data are collected. So this is something that we would like to do in the next step of our project, that we would like to move also our scrapers there. And probably this would lead to be less prone on some errors like we have with restarting of our servers. So the possibility to use some platform that is more complex and also lets us to process the data inside of them, and then finally at the end it will let us to extract the data outside of the hub to our databases. It could be a solution that could be used more often by our statisticians in different projects that are using web scraping techniques. And also just to sum up, and we are going to the end of this part of data collection. I would like to conclude with this 5. Maybe they are not the main lessons or main ideas that you should keep, but I think that they are very important because the process of focusing on the page inspection is it may be obvious that you go into the page, you search for the information, you just can right click on the, for example, price data that is on the website, then you know in which type it is stored. But from my experience, if you put some more effort and look more into the HTML document, you may find some more information, not only this that is presented on the page, but also, as I mentioned, for example, this that on one website we found a link to or the information that let us get to the API access. And it's also, and from my point of view, it's also very important to keep the logs of the executed programs. So once more, something that is obvious, but it's good to keep them, and they sometimes let us to assess what could happen wrong in the program, and if this was something that happened multiple times in the past or not. You need to remember that you have to, using web scraping techniques, you need to monitor how the data behaves, not only in the time series or in the time intervals that you are acquiring the data, but you need to assess it more often. So the process of acquiring the data and assessing this data should be longer than you normally think that you could do it. It's monitoring the data every month, after every acquiring of data, and our experience in the case of Bulgarian scrapers, it showed that one of the page had a problem with its stability. In 1 month, they had 2,000 offers. Next month, they had problems with getting the positive response from the site. You can always see that in different times of the day. You can have different number of offers because it all happens in real time, and we shouldn't focus only on the time intervals that we are planning to aggregate the data finally. Okay, so now I would like to pass it back to Claudia to go for the data quality topic.
Dominic, just before you do that, I've got a few questions for you from the Slido.
Oh, yes.
It would be good to get the answers for those. Okay, so the first one says, Claudia, you might be able to actually answer this. How is the community of experts conducted for each of the different data types, e.g., who is part of the community of the experts for the OJA?
I think it refers to the to this slide, to this graph that you showed with the structure of the different hubs, because there were those community of experts under every hub.
Okay, we will be sharing the slides after the presentation. Okay, on to the next one. Do you use Git or something else for code revisioning? It sounds like you do not.
Well, we use GitLab for code revisioning, but we started building 4 different scrapers, so dedicated for 4 different sources. And Git is always useful to work with, but when we had one specialist to create a dedicated scraper for one source, I must tell that there was no Git revisioning at the beginning. We implemented it after a few months of starting the project, and now we are using the GitLab fully. And as I mentioned in the Visual Studio Code, also I found it very useful to use with it GitHub because it connects very well. Using GitLab, we had also some problems with the SSL certification, so we struggled a bit with the security level of security that we have in our organization.
Okay, then
okay, I see those questions. Yeah.
Okay, a couple more. I have a technical question. How much storage is needed for the data that you extract?
Okay, so right now, as we started scraping in April 2022, some of the sources are letting us get more offers than the others, but overall, for those 14 months, we got 16 gigabytes of data. They are all stored in CSV files. And well, this is not much, but those scrapers that we use, we execute every month. So if you would like to acquire the data daily, it would be about 30 times 16 gigabytes. So I suppose that after a few years, we would make one of our network area storages full. So this would be my answer for this question.
Okay, then I've got another one for you. Is it possible to scrape data from a website without knowing what exactly is the data and where it is representative, such as scrape data by keyword, for example?
Yeah, I assume that this question could be better answered by one of our different use case teams in the Web Intelligence project, Web Intelligence Network project, because they are working on online-based enterprises characteristics. So they try to build something more generic. Personally, I think that maybe it's close to impossible to do it with some basic knowledge of web scraping to get information from the website that we don't know where exactly this information is. But we also did, like, it was a project that we we just conducted for training purposes. So we tried to get the information from the company website if the company is making some tasks referred to social responsibility. So we decided to use search engines. So we can use them, Google search engines or some other search engine to get this information. So not to create something something big. It's sometimes easy to use different tools, different solutions to find something inside the website. So when we know on which website we are seeking this information, we can use search engine to find some specific link to the page that possibly will have the information inside.
Okay, then we've got one tip to improve your development experience. If you are using VS Code, you can use www.codium.com. It is an AI assistant that really helps developing faster. It's totally free. Thank you for that tip. That's fabulous.
Yeah, I hope that it wasn't wrote by someone from Decodium as a commercial.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but I sure I will check it.
Okay, and then the last one is, will there be another award for Web Intelligence? If yes, when will it start?
Okay, I didn't know that there was any award. I didn't got any, you know.
Okay, so I think that it may be.
I don't know, Claudia, if you heard about it.
I think they may be asking about will the project continue? The current project at the moment is due to finish 2024.
This is the question for Eurostat, I guess.
Okay.
Actually.
I will see if I can find out the answer for that and forward it in the email when I send the slides around. Okay, that's all the questions for now. Thank you, guys. Over to you, Claudia.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Dominic. I will present the last part of the presentation. I hope that you can see the presentation. Sarah, could you please confirm?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Brilliant. So this will be the last part of our presentation. I promise it will be shorter than Dominic's, but I will take around 15 minutes to tell you about data quality issues that we were dealing with and the work that is still ahead of us in that area. So first of all, I'd like to say that, of course, web data characterizes of some specificities when it comes to quality issues, and that has to be which has to be seen, and we has to observe data with very carefully. So the first issue I'd like to stress out is stability of web data sources. Dominic already mentioned about some cases from Bulgaria, for example, when the data sometimes can be shaky, and also in other domains sometimes also we have such examples that from 1 month to another one there is a significant drop or significant increase of amount of data without any particular reason. In our case, fortunately, we haven't observed such an issue, so our data are generally very stable when it comes to the number of offers for sales. Since April 2022 until April 2023, we generally can say that the data are very stable because the number of offers for sale is similar. The exception is December 2022, which is due to the fact that we haven't managed to collect the data from our one significant data source. So here we have got a significant drop with the number of scraped offers. However, in other months, the number is around 250,000 of offers in total. Referring to offers for rent, there is something that is also very visible, that we have a very clear trend that the number of offers for rent increases since April 2022 until April 2023. Of course, at the beginning, we didn't have two data sources because we started scraping them a bit later on, and this is also the case of December. This is the same reason when it as it is for offers for sale, when we have also problems with collection of data from one portal, but generally we can see the trend which is very clear, and we have collected also a few data sets from a few previous months. So this is like the end of 2021 and the beginning of 2022, and it looks like that it is a high drop in the spring of 2022. So our hypothesis is that of course, we have many people who came to Poland from Ukraine due to the unexpected war, and it seems that offers for rent were very popular, that apartments for rent were very popular then, and the number of offers available at the market just drastically dropped at the market. So this is one hypothesis. The second one is that now the market is in a more stable condition, but on the other hand, there could be also another explanation that of course, prices in Poland are also growing, and the rate of inflation is pretty high. So that maybe there are more apartments for rent left at the market, and more apartments are available at the market. So this is another explanation, but these two are just hypotheses. We should further explore it, but that graph shows us that rental market is really important and is very interesting in Poland and should be observed and further monitored. When we gather data, we started from its preliminary assessment, and this is a very simple set of quality indicators which we use to assess some issues related to our data sets. So, for example, we collect information about number of offers which we didn't scrape because of the negative code response, and also we gather information about missing values, especially for the mandatory variables. This is the core of indicators, the variables, let's say, which are the most important for us. This is the set of variables which in the group of countries we decided that we should try to collect together, just to ensure comparability between countries and to have a common set of variables that would be comparable within countries. Of course, each country also can collect other variables, but those one are compared between ourselves. So we are counting such very initial quality indicators to see what is the number of missing information at the start. So at the process of scraping, and then how they are filled when it comes to its completeness. So you can see that in the previous slide that there were around 4% of missing. So it seems that it is not very high percentage of missings. However, it all depends on the source and also, of course, on the variable. So, for example, in one of our data source, the total number of the total percentage of missing is around 11%, and when we look at the variables, we can see that in some cases the percentage of missing data is higher. It is around, for example, 20% when it comes to price in our source 1 and 2. 27 when it comes to number of rooms in source 4. And when it comes to the floor, for example, in one case, it is even 100%. However, this is the case where we are unable to gather that information via web scraping. This is something that should be dealt with further. So, because this is also the information which should be, which is in our scope of interest when it comes to the comparability between partners. And location, which seems to be very promising because you can see that we have 100% information about location for our all 4 sources. However, it all depends on the level of aggregation. So, of course, we have difficulties sometimes to get into the lower level of aggregation. So in main cases, in most of the cases, we have information, for example, about our region, about town. However, when we want to have information about the districts or streets, some of our offers are filled in correctly and completely, some of them are not. So this is also something that have to be decided on what aggregated level we will present the location. Our goal generally is to present this data for at least the biggest cities in Poland, and it seems to be feasible. However, we would like to also somehow calculate that indicators for surroundings of the biggest cities, or maybe even in some cases, districts. I was talking about missing data, and this is also something particularly important when we split our market into new constructions and secondary market. We can see that the problem of missing data is characterizes generally new constructions. So here we have around 44% of data within information about the price. In other cases, in about 56%, we have some value inserted in the offer. And comparing it to the secondary market, we can see that within the secondary market, so when not the developer, but for example the owner or the next owner sell the apartment, this is in most cases 100% values are filled in. The question is now how to deal with it, how to deal with missing data. So the simple solution is just to drop them. But as you can see, when we apply that solution, we will lose many information about the new construction, especially. Another solution, another option is imputation. So we can impute missing values, but the question is, of course, what kind of method do we apply? In case of new constructions, there are many offers in which we can find information, ask for price developer, ask for price agency or something like that. and there are very similar offers when it comes to characteristics. So it is very difficult to choose an appropriate method because it is sometimes not possible to, for example, take values from the neighbors or just to calculate some average or other statistics and to input that data in that way. So we will figure it out, and we will have to test a few methods and how to deal with that missing data, especially for the price information, price variable. This is something that is still ahead of us. Another issue that we are dealing with when it comes to the quality of data are errors. Of course, we are using data from the web when the owners, when agencies, developers insert data on their own. So we can find out many errors, like, for example, very high number of price or area, or in other cases, very small one. So we have to figure out if this is actually the error, the mistake, or not. Maybe this is something that exists on the market because this is, for example, very expensive apartment in the biggest cities in Poland. So in that part, this is crucial collaboration with subject matter experts, which just have knowledge in real estate domain. There are, of course, many other errors like offers that are not supposed to be in our data sets, in our scope. So, for example, lands, and we are dealing with only apartments, semi-categorized variables, and multi-offers. And about this last one, I will elaborate more. Okay, so this is the issue, especially about duplicates. We calculated that within a monthly database, we have about half or 2% of duplicates, but the analysis was conducted by ID of offers or just URL. We know that the issue is more complex because sometimes the offer is updated and reappearing in the net. So with a new ID, in the end, the same characteristics, sometimes with new ID and different characteristics, and we should figure out if we should take into account the last update or maybe the first offer. This is, of course, a huge overlap between portals. This is the case especially of portals which have the same owner. So in that case, we have the same offers in a few portals, and we should also somehow deal with it and deduplicate the data sets. And as I mentioned, multi-offers in the new buildings. This is the case of new constructions when, for example, in one offer we have information about a few apartments which differs between prices, surface, and other characteristics, but they are described within one ID. And it also should be decided if we should calculate it one by one, or maybe just to just calculate once. Another issue that also should be taken into account where we are calculating some indicators based on web data is the structure of variables. Here I've got two examples: share of offers for sale by price in euro per square meter. And we can see that, for example, in our two data sources, there are more cheapest offers, and in two other data sources, offers are more expensive. So our data sets are not balanced, and we should take this into account. Because sometimes when we calculate, of course, some indicators based on one source, there will be biased because of the offers which are presented on the portal. And that's why it's good to have plenty of data sources and somehow balanced our data sets. Another example is share of offers for rent by price in euro, which also present that data sources are unbalanced, but here you can see that this is not exactly the specificity of one data source, because when we compare data source number 4, we can see that when we have offers for sale, we have a very small number share of very cheap offers for sale, but for rent, here we've got higher percentage of offers, the most cheapest offers for rent, comparing to other free data sources. So this is something that also should be taken into consideration, and by calculation the final indicators. Another and the last issue when it comes to the unbalanced data, here we've got territorial distribution between data sources and cities, and the biggest cities in Poland compared with the official data. So we can see that, for example, Warsaw, the capital city of Poland, is under coverage in our data sources, and in other, Kraków is also over coverage in our data sources, but there are some cities that are less represented in our data sources comparing to official data sets, official statistics. So this has also a huge impact on the calculation, and this is something that should be really take into account when we have to calculate final results. This is the issue why it is not so easy to move from collecting and processing data to producing official statistics, because there are plenty of quality and methodology challenges that we are still struggling, that we are still dealing with, and there are no one simple solution how to deal with that issues. Especially this is the case of Poland when we don't have another administrative or another official data sources to compare our data sets from web data and to another one, and to somehow have weights, for example, that will be applied to web data, and that we have a knowledge how many offers for rent should we have from each cities, of what characteristics, and so on. So the population in that case is undefined. And last but not least, there is also the issue that should be taken into account, and we should have to take it in our mind, that what we are calculating here is the price of offer. This is something different than the price of transaction, because of course here we've got much more offers than actually have been sold or have been rent. And another issue is that the price of transaction is usually higher than the price of offer. So this is not the same, this is not equal, but our preliminary results show that trends are very similar when it comes to the average price over time. And so this is something that we will have to observe and to monitor in the coming months. But as you can see, there are plenty of challenges that we haven't managed to overcome yet, and there is still some work ahead of us. So if you have any questions to our work, but also if you have some suggestions and tips, we would be happy if you can put them to write to us on the Slido, or to put our email addresses, because as we mentioned at the beginning of our presentation, the collaboration in such an important topics and to web data is just critical. So thank you very much.
Okay, I've got a couple of questions, Claudia, for you, and then we'll
Yep.
wrap up very quickly. Actually, this first one might be for Dominic. It says, how do you make sure that you do not scrape the same offer multiple times? How is deduplication performed? Maybe I missed that during the talk. Sorry if that is the case.
Yeah, well, this question was there before Claudia presented the part with the deduplication. I have already answered it in the text. So once again, I repeat, we are making the deduplication process within one data source using the ID of the offer. And now we need to work on how to find a way to deduplicate between different data sources. So this is something that we need to overcome.
Okay, thank you. And then the next question is, did you attempt to estimate the differences in advertised prices versus actual paid prices in the long term? Could data gathered from the websites in different countries be considered comparable?
I will say about Poland use case. So as I mentioned at the end of my presentation, sorry for the rush, but yes, we have been comparing our data from from websites to administrative data sources when it comes to the sale market. And as I mentioned, the trend seems to be very similar. So transaction prices are higher than the prices of offers. However, there is just a slight shift between these two data sources. But still, this is just 1 year, and we will further collect the data and monitor if it would be similar as it is now in the future.
Okay, lovely. And then hold on one sec. I think there might be one more. Yes, one more. Can we assess the quality of real estate using this approach to enable like-for-like comparison?
Oh, sorry, and I missed that question on my screen, and I don't know if I understand it correctly. But we are still, what we have shown is that we have just a very simple basic indicators that we are comparing our data sets from one month to another one. So this is one issue. Another issue of comparison is to compare data source from websites with administrative or other data sources. So as our partners also discussed, this is the ideal solution when we have some reference source that can be used for a comparison purposes. In our case, as I mentioned at the beginning, there is lack of relevant source for rental market. So here we've got a bit more problems and challenges how to set, for example, weights and so on. But generally speaking, I think that our purposes and what we will develop within coming months and 2 years, because the project is still under development, will be able to be applied in other countries and other use cases, I hope. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Claudia. Okay, all that remains for me to say is that I've posted a live feed in the Slido for our survey feedback questionnaire. If you could complete that for us, that will be fantastic. Thank you for joining us today. The survey only has 12 questions, and we are very interested to know what you thought about the webinar. It does help us as we progress through the series that we will be doing. And then that just leaves me to say thank you for joining us today. Please remember to complete the feedback survey. You will also get it via email, as we're very keen to hear from you. And I hope you've all enjoyed. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.